Do I regret moving to Rhode Island? What's up guys, Albert here. In today's video, we're talking about my top regrets about moving to Rhode Island. As you all know, I moved to Rhode Island from New York City about 5.5 years ago. I used to live in New York and then I moved to Rhode Island. And as you all know, this channel is completely dedicated to people who are considering moving here and why you should move here and all the positives that this state has to offer, which are certainly a lot. But recently I was thinking about a couple things and I was doing some reflecting on my own, and I started thinking about a couple of things of how potentially my life could have gone differently if I had either stayed in New York City or moved to like another bigger city like Austin or Dallas or Miami compared to Rhode Island. So I started thinking about those things and then I created a list of a couple of things that I personally miss in Rhode Island, personally for my lifestyle, and things that I aspire and things that I do, and why I find it a little bit difficult sometimes to make those things work in Rhode Island. There's 10 things on the list. Number one on my list is the Rhode Island is a small state. That alone in itself has so many benefits. The fact that Rhode Island is a small state, I do love that for certain things because, like I say it all the time, you can drive everywhere really quickly. You can go to Newport, you can go multiple places very easily. So I do like that. But what I don't like is, and what I'm recently learning is that being in a small state has definitely its huge cons, especially if if you're into networking and if you're into making new connections. Being in a small state is a problem because everyone knows everyone. Someone like me who's always moving, always looking to meet new people, you kind of run through a state really quickly and it can get boring. And for someone like me, that is a problem. So that is definitely a regret. So I just visited New York 2 weeks ago. I remember right away, I saw my friends and I just remember that feeling of like the impossible size of the city and so many things to do, and it's just how it's limitless, and it gave me a really good feeling and very exciting. So to me, that a part of me definitely wishes that I was in a city like New York where life is just moving non-stop and things are not stopping and you always have things to do. All right, number two is the economy. The economy in Rhode Island is, as we all know, this is public data, it is right now, well, let me put it this way. Right now, the unemployment is at a record low, even compared to nationwide. But as far as the economy goes, average income, lifestyle and all these things, it is on the lower end when it comes to the US. So that is also a problem because when it comes to getting jobs and all that stuff, it is a little bit more difficult to do just because there is not much of an economy. There's not a lot of companies and corporates that move here for you to make it exciting. And that's another thing that I do regret, because if I was in New York, the opportunities on that end are completely limitless. Number three, this kind of connects with number two, it's employment opportunities. If you look for jobs in Rhode Island versus other states, you're going to see that there are jobs, but just the amount of jobs that you can find in New York City or in Miami or LA, it just does not compare, right? So if that is important to you, if you want more options, like if you like, for example, I like sales. If I wasn't doing what I do now, I'd be definitely doing something in sales. It'd be something else, and I would love to have a variety of options where I can sell different products or services that do not limit my income potential, give me the freedom that I want. And I'm seeing that looking for things here, it's not very easy to find those kinds of jobs that also do pay you a lot of money. So it's important to keep in mind that employment is definitely going to be an issue. Number four is entrepreneurship opportunities. There's incentives here. The state does incentivize people to create entrepreneurship opportunities, but what you don't have is, as a mindset of the state, there's not enough of people who have an entrepreneurship type mindset. So there's not enough businesses, in my opinion, that are being started. It's not as easy to find interns. And so you want to keep that in mind. If you are an entrepreneur, depending on your goals and the type of business that you're trying to start, you definitely want to keep in mind if Rhode Island is the right state for that. Because to me, like I look at it now, I've had my own business for over 4 years now. And I started, it was easy to start, which was a benefit because the cost of starting is definitely less. That's like office spaces and all that stuff. But it's not as easy to find good talent, to find good interns, right? So like I notice a lot of kids at 2021 when they graduate, they're looking to move out of here, and it's difficult to keep people here as interns and and contribute back into the state. So that's also something to keep in mind. Number five on my list is networking opportunities. Although I love to network and I've been here for 5 years, I've gotten to know a lot of people, and I'm grateful and appreciative of that. But I'm at a point now where it's like and I know it's not true, but it almost feels like I know everyone I should know in Rhode Island. I know everyone of impact. I know everyone who, you know, I can do business with and I can grow with. And that in itself is exciting, but also it seems like, all right, what's next? Like what do I tackle next? If I was somewhere like New York City, like when I was two weeks ago, I just ran into this random entrepreneur at a restaurant who's in my space but does an incredible amount of business, and you just randomly run into people like that because of how big the city is. Unfortunately, you can run into people like that here. You can network with people like that here. It's just not at that scale, and it's just a little bit more difficult to do. So you want to keep that in mind, that networking opportunities are there, but they're just not at the same level. Number 6 on my list is lifestyle. For someone like me, lifestyle is really important. I like the city lifestyle. I like to be close to things. I like to be close to restaurants. I like to, I like to go out. I like to do things and keep moving all the time. So that is really important to me. And one thing that Rhode Island does offer, but I want to say it's mostly seasonal, is it does offer activities and things that you can do and go out and meet people and all that stuff, but it does not offer that throughout the whole year. Right now, things are fun because you could go to Newport, there's always events and things like that, again, to go back to networking opportunities, but there's always things happening. But then when fall and winter hit, things kind of really slow down, and I do not like that. It feels really tough to be here during that time. Definitely, it's a little bit difficult for me to be here during that time because I do like just a fast-paced lifestyle where things are always happening, things are always moving. When I wake up in the morning, I have a bunch of options of things that I could do and places where I can go. So I do love that. Number 7 on my list is shopping. The thing about Rhode Island is, and especially Providence, we have Providence Place Mall. The best store in Providence Place Mall is probably Macy's, right? Where you can go buy, Levi's jeans and things like that, but there's not a lot of high-end shopping or fashionable stores. So if you're looking to shop for things that are a little bit more high-end or more in or more trendy or more fashionable, you either have to drive all the way to Boston or you have to drive to New York to do that. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're into fashion, if that is important to you, you're not really going to find that in Rhode Island, and especially Providence. All right, number 8 on my list, I did culture. I love the Rhode Island culture. People are usually friendly. Kind of the way it works here, people don't really approach you. It's not as easy to start a conversation with a stranger as it was when I lived in New York, or as it is in bigger cities, just because people are used to those things. It's kind of who you know. People are, a little bit more in cliques. Like if they don't know you, it's really hard to get into people's circles and to make new friends. I'm not saying that's the same case for everyone, but for most people, it's going to be really hard to do that. It's just more laid back culture. People know who they know. People know who they went to school with, high school, college, and those are their friends. And most people are not really interested in creating new connections. So it's something to keep in mind that is really important in my opinion. Number 9 in my list, I did diversity. To me, diversity is extremely important. I am an immigrant. I moved here from Europe. I have a diverse mind when it comes to culture, society, and everything else. I do have a worldly view, and it is important for me to share that with other people. Although I run into a lot of people that do have those views here, but in general, a lot of people are, and you will hear this a lot in Rhode Island, that a lot of people are kind of set in their ways here. So it's something to keep in mind. If diversity is important to you, if you would like to run into different people from different cultures and have different discussions, it is something to keep in mind that it's tougher to do here. Like when I tell people here, I was born in Sweden and I was raised in Albania and I moved here at 21 and I didn't know anyone. I moved here with no money in my pocket, and people are, and I appreciate that, but people are completely fascinated because they have never heard a story like that. But when you tell someone in New York that, they're like, oh, that's great, but it's not. Like there's so many people who have similar stories, and not even similar, even crazier stories than that of how they moved to New York. The diversity in Rhode Island is not, there's definitely diversity. It's just not at the level that you might want it to be, or that I might want it to be, right? I want diversity of thought, diversity of conversation. That is really important to me. You get it, you just don't get it at the rate that most people would like to. All right, and number 10 on my list is Rhode Island is very provincial. Okay, what I mean by that? So Rhode Island is even though it's such a small state, I'll give you an example in my industry, right? So like my office is right now in Warwick, Rhode Island, which is very central to the state, right? I was speaking to a potential client who lives in Newport, and it's about 35 minutes away, right? And their second or third comment to me was, do you work in Newport, or do you specialize in Newport? And I said, I specialize in the whole state because it's so small. I don't specialize in Newport. I don't specialize in Warwick. I specialize in the whole state because honestly, I don't have a choice because it's a small state. I have to know all the ins and outs of the market, right? But they immediately were very concerned that I don't specialize in Newport. It's the same thing, or if, like, let's say Bristol, Rhode Island, or Warren, Rhode Island, East Greenwich. Like, you have all these people that if they're from East Greenwich, they stay in East Greenwich, they hang out in East Greenwich, they go out in East Greenwich, they probably work somewhere outside of East Greenwich, like maybe Boston or something like that, or they have like their own business in East Greenwich, but they stay there. If they're from Bristol, they stay in Bristol. If they're from Barrington, they stay in Barrington. Their friends are in Barrington. They don't really go out a lot to explore. I'm like, I get excited if I meet someone who's not from the same town. Like, I want to get to know people. People get up, go to work on the weekend, they go to the same restaurant, they meet the same people, and they just keep repeating the same thing day in and day out. And to me, that absolutely drives me insane. It's probably, honestly, like, this should have been the top of my list. I should have just made this point and just keep it on my list and just talk about this one, because I think it covers all the other points that I said are within that one. So I think it's really important. If you being around open-mindedness is important, then I would definitely think about that before moving here, because it's not a quality that you would easily find here. Most people, like I said earlier, know who they know, and they've known them for a long time, and they're okay with it. And if you were as an outsider like me, I had to work really, really hard to make friends and create connections, and it took me years. I've known people, but it just took me years. People don't bring you into their circles very easily, so it was something I had to work on really hard. Now I know people and I have friends. So it's something important to keep in mind, because I do remember in New York City when I lived there, without even being purposeful or even trying, I just remember that it was very easy to connect with people, make friends, and just grow. And that's what was happening, but it's just not the case here. It's a little bit different, so you want to... All right, so there you have it. These are my regrets about moving to Rhode Island. Hope you found some value in this video. If you did, subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment if you disagree with it. If you agree with it, show some love, and we'll see you in the next video.